Keeping the peace is a strangely active phrase for something that mostly involves not doing things, not saying the obvious, not asking questions, not following a thought to its natural conclusion. It suggests calm, but is usually the result of several small, deliberate avoidances, like negotiating a meal deal in Tesco. Peace is like a printer, dependable and slightly boring, that simply sits there and does its job until it doesn't, and it sends a nude to your manager and then burns your house down. But the more you examine it, the less peace looks like a state of being, and the more it looks like an agreement between people who haven't yet found it worth breaking. Approximately 50 to 65 of the world's countries fall into the peaceful category by common international measures. That's roughly 25 to 33%. I say roughly because the world cannot even agree on how many countries the world has. Also, there's something suspicious about the word approximately. It presents itself as helpful, but really it's just a polite way of saying you stopped caring halfway through the calculation. It implies effort without commitment, accuracy without responsibility. It's the numerical equivalent of a shrug dressed up in just enough syllables to sound intentional. Today's entry has been brought to you by the word approximately, which, if I had to estimate, appeared several times. Probably not. But believe it or not, amongst this distraction as reaction, I'm trying to not be political, but ignoring the ethics and deterrence arguments for just a moment. Let me just place this nuclear bomb on the table. A state with them cannot be coerced in the way a state without them can, which means the states on the other side of that equation are sovereign in every formal sense, but their continued existence depends quietly and at all times on someone else's restraint. So, whilst there is no occupation, this arrangement is far more elegant. It functions like a hybrid empire, existing as a very large implicit clause that attaches itself unwritten to every interaction, like freedom as a subscription with abstract T&Cs. Only 9 countries in the world possess nuclear weapons, so in this world of proximatized peace, if you think 25 to 33% is bad, try 4.6%, because some nations are independent the way adults are independent. They make their choices and live with the consequences. Others are independent the way children are, which is to say, technically, on paper, so long as they're home before the streetlights come on. This would be uncomfortable enough on its own, but it gets worse because once sovereignty becomes a spectrum, peace does too. A country can be described as being at peace on the grounds that nothing is presently on fire in an internationally recognised way. Peace, therefore, is simply a word for countries that haven't made the news recently enough to matter. There is also a kind of peace that functions more like permanent suspense. The violence hasn't happened, but it hasn't been ruled out either. The country exists in the conditional tense, its continued survival contingent not on its own strength or rights, but on the forbearance of whoever happens to be strongest this decade. Essentially, a very long pause, during which people are expected to get on with their lives and not worry about the smoke alarm missing its batteries. We have always liked our political words to sound absolute: peace, order, freedom. And we deploy them as though they describe something fixed. The effect is that whoever controls the words gets to describe the world, and whoever describes the world gets to decide who counts as peaceful, ordered, and ultimately free. So when a government announces that peace has been restored, what they generally mean is that the situation has become manageable for them under their own customised preferences. The destruction has reached an acceptable rate, and the parties most capable of further escalation have all agreed for now to clap. This may well be preferable to the alternative, it may even be worth celebrating, but it is not the same as peace. Because order and peace are not synonyms, they are just occasional acquaintances who sometimes appear in the same photograph. A cemetery is ordered, a checkpoint is ordered, even a population that has learned not to ask questions is, in the narrowest technical sense, ordered. The presence of order does not tell you whether anyone in it is free. Peace seems to require something more than that, not just the postponement of violence, but the absence of living in its waiting room. If that's what peace actually is, then most of what we call by that name is a different thing entirely, like the diplomatic equivalent of a still lake, which is only still because nothing has been dropped in it recently. and everyone powerful has agreed not to skip stones until further notice. But if a world can be peaceful in appearance whilst remaining fundamentally unfree, then that, unfortunately, leaves behind only the management of its absence, held approximately by 4.6%.